Hey, hi. We're going to talk about math today. Garen is helping me. Garen, say hi.
Hi.
Garen is the one I talked to you about that has autism. And he is drastically better because he can talk to people and look at people, but he's nervous. Right?
Acting is hard.
You're not supposed to act.
Sorry.
That's okay. So he is going to help me show you how to do the younger ages and things like that. But we are first going to start with the things that we need to do through math. What I like to start with is I like to use Saxon math. I like to use Saxon math because for kids, people who are freaking out about whether they can teach math because maybe they're not a math person. I was a math person, so this was easier for me, but I still bought Dive CDs. That's D-I-V-E, and it's called Dive into Math or Dive into Science, and they actually follow along with the science the Saxon math books. And they also have science. I'm trying to think of which science they follow along. I think it's the BJ sciences that they follow along. Those science books. But either way, it doesn't matter. So what happens is I would order those CDs, and what happens is the guy goes in there and he explains the lesson, and what it looks like you're looking at a whiteboard the whole time while he's talking, and he explains it, or actually more like a digital whiteboard because you can't see his hand. Yes. And so what ends up happening is the child listens to it, like let's say they listen to lesson 4. He tells you to pause it while he goes through the problem so the kid can go through it, and then when they're done listening to the lesson, you would have them then go do their math. So the reason why I like Saxon is let me take the phone from my daughter really quick. If you zoom in, I don't know if you can see how every lesson says, like lesson 1, it will say, it has parentheses and says 18 or less, or sorry, number 1, it says 18, number 2, it says 46. That is the lesson, sorry. This has to go blurry here. That's the lesson. Like, come on, phone. That's the lesson that it's from. Now, why that's very good is the fact that if they're having a problem with number 3, let's say, and they want to come to you and say, Mom, I don't know how to do lesson 3. You can first say, okay, well, you can go back and listen to the lesson from the Dive CD and have him explain to you lesson 32, because on number 3 it says it's from lesson 32. Or you can, so you have them go do that first, or you can go back and look at lesson 32. So if I go back to lesson 32, Kyla, can you point at the book? No, I mean like angle, so it's not at the angle. If I go to lesson 32, they're going to say example 1, and here's a problem. Example 2, here's a problem. Example 3. And I know you can't probably see all this unless I zoom in. Example 4 is going to have a problem. And then, so there's 4 example problems. And in my lesson, you might have found that I promise one of the problems, like from lesson 3, we were doing lesson 48, I guess. It had, when it said from lesson 32, I can't even remember where we're at, but it's all right. Yeah, we had lesson 47, and he got number 3 wrong, or she got number 3 wrong. They can actually go back to that lesson, and they can look up a practice problem and see how it works. And if they can't understand the practice problem, that's where I would get in and actually say, okay, I'm going to do the practice problem with you, and teach them how to do the practice problem so they could go back and do their problem. So why am I telling you this in the beginning? The only reason why is because the goal with math is we want to get our child as independent as possible. We want to think about the college classes that they're going to take. And it's hard because some of you are like, yes, I have a little teeny kid and I don't know what to do with them. We are so used to getting worksheets. So when I started homeschooling my first child, I remember getting this whole curriculum, figuring out he was at 3rd grade level when he was at kindergarten. So I got this whole 3rd grade level. And it took us, and he tested in all these different areas, and I ended up getting like 12 different textbooks and worksheets and workbooks and things like that. And in about 3 months, we'd finished everything except for the math book that was like 500 pages, because each lesson was like 60 problems of like adding, and 60 problems the next lesson of subtracting, and then 60 problems of counting. And then by the time we went back to adding, they forgot how to add. And again, 60 problems when they already know something is simply a waste of time. I realized there was so much busy work, and I realized at the end of the year, you don't have to keep going back to it's just on me. At the end of the year, sorry, I'm talking to my dad at the same time. Half the stuff that was the worksheets. Brenda, can you go out? Can you take him out, Garen, while I'm still talking? Then come back in. Oh, never mind, he went out. At the end of the year, everything that he'd learned in the workbooks, half of it he didn't remember. It was just busy work. And so the goal is to get rid of as much of that stuff. So what do we do in the very beginning? The reason why I tell you this with the older ages, because I go all the way with the older ages where I assign them, I like Saxon, I will assign them depending on the level that they're at. I will assign them one lesson, meaning where they listen to the lesson, they do the practice problems, and then they do the evens or they do the odds. So there are 30 problems in these lessons. And so I don't have them do 30 problems. I have them do, like I said, the odds or the evens. If they have a problem with the practice problems in the beginning, I will have them go back and listen to the lesson again. If they still can't get them, I will go through and I will explain the example problems. And you might feel like, well, how can I do that? I promise, if you just look at the book, word for word, it explains to you. And if you graduated high school, I promise you, you can remember it. It'll go back and teach you. Even the Dive CD, if you had to, you could go back and listen to how he explains it and go, okay, I can explain that. Because I'm going to go and then I'm going to explain an example problem in the book like his. The whole point is that those Dive CDs, he actually gives different example problems so that they also have these problems in here. Meaning he gives different practice problems in there than the ones that are in the book so that you'll have extra problems to work with. Right, Garen? All right, so let's go to the first step. Okay, so the first thing I do with all of my kids, unless they get to the point where they completely know it, and you need to do this when they're little, is you need to get some adding flashcards, you need to get some subtracting flashcards, and you need to get some multiplication flashcards. We need to get visually, and in the video before we talked about sequencing. What's very important with sequencing is that they